Namaste, everyone. Welcome to India Calling. Stories and tips from spiritual travelers from across the globe, sponsored to you by Smukti. Today's guest, he's not just visiting India, but he is leading groups from Australia all the way to India. Meet Geoff Rupp, a Vedic meditation teacher, a Himalayan breathwork facilitator, and astrologer who is based in Sydney. He spent 30 years in television before he diagnosed with a life-changing disease which he then fixed and later turned into Vedic meditation and then to India and to the feet of the masters in Rishikesh. Over the last 10 years, he has been coming to India, visiting his home, I would say, uh, the Himalayas, Badrinath to be specific, and in the south, the Navagrahas. So, in today's conversation, we talked with Geoff about the Himalayas and his journey down south, the length and breadth of India that he has covered. Thank you, Geoff, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Xavier. It's nice to be here.
Superb. I'll straight away dive into my first question. You had a big career in television. What really cracked open?
What really what?
What really cracked open and led you to India?
I think that when I was working in television, especially towards the end, because I was in a high stress job, that I started coming to India in January every year because that was my teacher used to run a meditation retreat in January in Rishikesh. So I used to just go on the meditation retreat every year. It was like 12 or 14 days, like up in Rishikesh. And then I started just coming because it was almost like I felt it was a good way to start my year, where I would like go every year I start Zen and all relaxed. And then so that's how my trips to India actually started. Like every January I used to come to India and do a meditation retreat. And then a few years later I ended up deciding to become a teacher myself. So that's when I spent a lot of time there, like 5 months, like studying and stuff like that, which was the first time I started studying in India. And then since then I've been back a lot.
What was your first experience? Can you recall that moment when you first landed in India? And what was your first trip like? Where all did you visit the first time you came to India?
The first time I went to Delhi, and then I went to Agra because like everyone goes to Agra to see the Taj Mahal because that's what we know, right? And then I think it was for me, it was more about the people. I think that I was a bit scared, as we always are if we haven't been somewhere, because you think, oh my God, there's like going to be all these people everywhere and stuff. But actually everyone was like really beautiful and amazing. And then I think it was actually like going to Rishikesh and stuff like that as well, where I saw that. And I think this happens to most actually Westerners when you come to India. I've noticed it on the people that I bring on the retreats as well, that you might go there thinking, oh, there's going to be lots of poverty, or, there's going to be lots of stuff. And so be upset about that. But actually you realize that actually everyone there is a very happy person, and that, everyone's living their life in accordance with the laws of nature and stuff. And it's only our own projections that are projecting that. And I think that that's what changes you. Because I know for me as well, like, it was, I used to work in television. I had a big job that I used to get paid good money. But, I remember just seeing this family one day in Rishikesh that were like going down to the Ganga every morning and doing Surya Namaskar and doing some breath work and taking blessings. And, and then I saw them in town like later on that day. And I remember thinking like, all my priorities in my life are wrong because, these people are like so happy. And like, I felt like I was climbing the corporate ladder and, trying to reach the top, but actually that wasn't the answer. I kind of had reached the top and I was looking around and I was like, this isn't what I want. But it was like that situation. I feel like India is what teaches you how to be humble and how to be much more grateful for what you have, and to realize it's not about that. To realize it's about how do you live in accordance, with nature and people.
In fact, that was my question when you said the first time you came to India, you went to Delhi and Taj Mahal. That's usually not the kind of conversations that I start with, because usually people who come on our show are talking about India has been a calling. I don't know, India somehow happened to me. But you seem to have started your India journey as more like a tourist to now,
Yeah.
10 years later, if you look at it, you've come all the way south to the Navagraha temples, which mostly Western travelers don't even know about the Navagraha temple. So how did this arc happen?
I think that I used to always do retreats I spent a lot of time in Rishikesh because my teachers were there. And then a few years ago, I mean, most of the time I always did the northern part of India. And I did used to travel. Like I used to often stay in India if I went to do a retreat or I went to travel for a bit, I used to always like taking some time to go somewhere that I hadn't been and just go and explore new areas just because I love India so much. Like I could easily live there. And then when I studied astrology, I remember my teacher said that the Navagraha temples were all in the south of India. And I remember thinking like, oh, wouldn't it be good to actually do a retreat that actually goes to all the Navagraha temples in India? So a few times that I went back there, I just actually used to go down south and I just started visiting the temples just to see, what they were like. And I used to go and stay in there and meditate in there and do things like that as well. So and then I really found that like South India as well has a whole different flavor, in terms of like the devotion. I always thought the northern part was more spiritually devoted, but actually when I was down south, I thought actually the southern people are much more devotional in terms of like really their whole life is built around, there was temples everywhere as well, so it's like, I feel like just having gone now like north and south, and especially because I've been as far north as Badrinath, I've done 5 retreats to Badrinath, so I've been there quite a lot of times. And I think that, the Navagraha temples are like really special. Like it's a really beautiful place to go. And that's why then I wanted to take other people there. So that's why I created the retreat that actually took people to the temples. But most Indians always told me that they don't do all 9 planet temples at once. They normally just do a couple at a time. But mine goes to all 9 at the same time. Well, not the same day, but like within 12 days. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do the same too because I stay far away from the Navagraha temples, and if I get an opportunity to visit all of them in one go, then it's great. So that suits you, and that's the best way to do it. I'm more curious to know a bit more about how your Jyotish journey itself started, because doing Jyotish for your own personal well-being or your own personal understanding is one thing, but it takes a whole lot of effort to learn it and do it for others. So how did that journey come into your being?
I feel like I was always very interested in Jyotish and astrology. So it was something that I was always very interested in. And I used to look at a lot of things, but I didn't used to, it wasn't until I used to ask my teacher all the time because he was a Jyotishi as well. So I was like, can you teach us how to do this? And he was like, one day I'll run it as a course or something. And so I know it was probably like about 6 or 7 years ago, he now just called me randomly, a few of us, and said like, you need to come to India for 6 weeks and I'm going to start doing some work with you to work out how I'm going to teach it. So a few of us went there, and then, we spent like 6 weeks with him in the ashram. And then we did like every month we used to do more calls when we went home. Like we used to do calls. And then, and then the next year we went back again, like for a couple of months, and did like another big chunk of it. And when I first started doing it, I was actually kind of doing it because I do like coaching and things like that as well. I have like a coaching part of my business. So I was kind of doing it. He always said that, if you actually go to, if you can get someone's chart and you can look at that there, then you don't need to have someone tell you what's wrong with them. You can see what's wrong with them. So it was actually more like that. And so I started using it really like for coaching. Like I wasn't really using it to be a Jyotish, to do people's charts. Like I was just using it for my business. But then when COVID happened and we couldn't teach in person anymore and do things like that, then some of my friends said like, why don't you start doing it, promoting, your readings are so good. Why don't you do them online, like, and stuff like that? So then I just started advertising a little bit like that. And then, it took off. And so now I do like, 5 to 10 a week. And, and it's, it's become like a big part of like what I do now. So, and I really love it. I think that if you're really into Jyotish, then you can, you start thinking in it all the time. Like everything you're looking at, if you're looking at someone and meeting new people, you're always thinking like, oh, I wonder where their Rahu is, and things like that. So I think it was like, it kind of was something that it kind of found me more than me finding it, it was one of those where I was already doing meditation, I was doing breathwork stuff. And then, I kind of did it as a way to help me with my coaching, not really thinking that it would become like a really big part of what I do. And now I run retreats that go to the Navagraha temples, so it's like, it's almost like it had a full takeover of like of my life in a big way of what I do. So yeah, it really changed my life actually.
And it absolutely makes sense that it found you as opposed to you finding it. And we say that in Indian spiritual traditions that the master finds you or the guru finds you. And it is very relevant to our today's conversation as well, because if I'm not wrong, you've already mentioned over 6 times your teacher in India. Would you like to speak about this teacher that you have in India, your gurus in India?
Yeah, my teacher was Anand Malhotra, who has Sattva Yoga Academy up in Rishikesh. So he's the one that taught me the Jyotish and did the Sattva Yoga. So I did like yoga, which is like like the breath work with Kriya, all that kind of stuff. Plus he does lots of advanced, trainings as well. So most of my trainings now are all done with him. And then before that, I had another teacher called like Tom Knowles, who had studied with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He was actually the guy who was with him for a long time, for like 19 years or something. When I did my meditation, I used to go on his retreats. That's how I kind of started going there. I was going on his retreats, and then we would go to Maharishi's ashram. And so I went all in that side first. And then when I wanted to learn more, then I kind of, because that was purely just meditation, but I was always like a bit of a seeker where I wanted to like, I want more, Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I love doing like japa and, doing kriya and breath work and stuff like that. So, because I feel like the reason why I really like Anand is that he teaches like an integrated practice. So it's all about using, all of the technologies to be able to, reach that stage of enlightenment. And if you read like Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, or you read, autobiography of a yogi with Yogananda and people like that, then it's like, they always talked about having an integrated practice where you use all the technologies to like to help you move through life and help you navigate life with more grace and ease if you put them into practice.
I'm sure there are a lot of moments that you have had, but is there one specific moment where you felt this is it? This is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. Is there such a moment?
I think there was one moment when I was in Vashista's cave in Rishi. I feel like I had to go in there. I was helping a pundit. I've got Pandit Bhaskaran. He's like a really good friend of mine. He was also with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi when he was 8 years old. He was dropped off there, but I met him, and he comes on all my retreats as well now. I'm really good friends with him. But I remember the first time I went to Vashista's cave, I went with him, and he made me like go into that cave, and we meditated in there for like, I don't know, maybe an hour. And then I remember when I came out of that cave, I felt like my body was vibrating at a different level. And I remember that night I had like very vivid dreams, and I didn't really sleep that well. And it was almost like when I woke up in the morning was when I knew that I have to go and become a teacher, and I have to go and learn how to teach this. Yeah, that was definitely one thing that changed me a lot. Was definitely, I can always like, that was definitely the defining moment. And also the moment where, and actually on that same trip was where I saw that family who was doing the Surya Namaskar and taking the blessing at Ganga every morning and doing that kind of stuff. And I think that those two things together, where I realized that my life was, I was chasing a corporate ladder, and there were people who were just normal people who, the dad was selling socks on the side of the road. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so, but they were so happy and it was so nice to me. And I thought, all my priorities are wrong, And so it was like those two things that
Wow.
happened on the retreat that actually, it was probably that retreat that really made me, when I come back, start looking at my life through a different lens and started going like, okay, like something has to change. Yeah. And then after that, it was kind of like a bit more of a journey of like self-discovery and like, starting to understanding that I had to start learning something if I was going to change my whole career and go from, back to zero and start again, then I had to, start somewhere. So I just did that. So then I went back to India for like 5 months later on and then started studying meditation and stuff. So that was like kind of how that happened. And then I did have one other story. If you want me to tell you this other story that happened, was like, the first time I went to Badrinath, I'd taken a group of people there, and I also had this pundit with me. And we were doing a yagya like inside the temple, and we were like, putting some sticks and ghee and the ghee wicks and everything there. And then later on, we moved around to the other side of the temple where there was this little tiny like yagya pit, because the main pundit came in and he was like, "Get away from my thing." And so we went around the other side, and we were there just kind of doing this thing. But there was this beautiful woman who came along like in this blue sari, and she had all these things of the ghee wicks, and she was giving them to my group, and I was like, oh, thank you. Like, I went to give her some money, and she was like, no, I'm fine. Like, just take it. And then we were like facing the temple, and, as we were just chanting something in the fire, and then all of a sudden I just looked up and she ended up just vanishing. And I said to Panditji, I was like, who was that? He went,
Wow.
Lakshmi. Like, Lakshmi came and gave us the ghee. I was like, oh,
Wow.
of course she did. Of course she did. And you know what? I could tell you lots of stories of things like that have like happened to me, but that was definitely one of the first ones that happened. And the reason why I always go there and why I love coming back to India is because I feel like magic happens there. If you're open to it and you're surrendered and you actually just, go with the flow and you do whatever, like magic happens there all the time, Yeah.
In fact, that was my next question. Why India and not Bali? You could run beautiful retreats in Bali. What does India have that nowhere else can replicate?
It's kind of got like a culture and like a history of like, it's it's so deep, like, the culture and, the fact that, every night still they do RT on the Ganga, and like they, everywhere you go, all the way up and down, no matter where you go. And even though I know in Bali they do that stuff too, but I feel like, I don't know, I like Bali. Don't get me wrong, like it's nice, but it's not India. And I feel like India just has this kind of like, they call it the motherland for a reason. Like I feel like it is. It feels like you're coming back home, like to the mother. It feels like you're definitely coming home to something. And I think that it's because the like everything there is like so rich. There's like so much history. Like even if you go to places like Varanasi and those kind of places as well, but they don't even know like how old those towns are, because they say, well, they could be like one of the first original towns like in all of history, kind of thing. And when you're walking through those little alleyways and stuff like you feel like you've stepped back in time, and I think that's actually what's so amazing about that place. You can go there and, and there's still like so much of India where I'm sure there's like many untouched places that aren't touristy, that you could go to that are, stuck in time. That's the only thing that I'm not upset about it, but like, if you go to India now compared to when I went like 10 or 11 years ago, you can see there's like, there's a shopping mall, and like now there's like, American Apparel, and there's like whatever. I'm like, I don't want to see that here. Do you know what I mean? Like, because the reason why I liked going there before was because it wasn't actually there. But to be honest as well as that, even if that stuff does come around, all the other stuff's still going to exist anyway, and you'll just have to find it because it's not going away. It's always going to be there. But I think that, the interesting thing for me as well is that lots of times it's actually Indian people who actually want to come in. When I go there, a lot of times I do teach people when I'm actually there too. And mainly because sometimes like, with the younger generation of Indian people, like some of it's got lost, and so they just want to re-engage like, with that kind of part of it as well. And I think that that's like, there's also been like a bit of a bridge that's like happened there as well. But I think that, I don't know, I just feel like it's just a magical place that like,
Just to know, I'm really
Yeah.
curious to know what all places in India have you visited so far?
Oh, I've been to like Rajasthan, and I've been to Jaipur, and I've been to I've gone from like, from Rishikesh all the way to Badrinath like several times, and gone to, those kind of places. Yeah, and down south, like I've been to Kerala, and I've been to, Kumbakom, and like all those kind of places that are kind of down there, like Chennai, and I've been to Mumbai, been to Goa. Yeah, I've
Nice.
done a lot. Like I've been to a lot of places. I
Yeah.
haven't, with people there, but I really, I do like. Most of the time when I go there, I try to always like take an extra few days somewhere just and go somewhere that I haven't been, just to explore.
What is one place in India that will continue to blow your mind irrespective of which time you're coming there?
That's a good question. Probably Varanasi.
I
I think.
expected that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's just like so much happens there, and I
True.
think that it's such a beautiful place. I mean, it was going to be a toss-up between Varanasi and Badrinath. Like, I really like Badrinath, but I was going to say,
Badrinath, yes.
yeah, I was going to say, like, from a perspective of like going there and like seeing something, then it's Varanasi. But to go there and like feel something, it's Badrinath. Yeah,
Yeah, true.
because I think Badrinath feel stuff in Varanasi too, but like in Badrinath, I can feel the energy there. Like that's why I like like taking people back to that place. And I feel like the people that live there that, always come up and down, because I've been going there so many times now and it's always the same people. Like it's very nice to go back and, revisit the families and like see that kind of stuff. And they remember you from like, coming there before as well. I think that's like a special thing. That's what I like about India. They don't really forget you like when you come. And plus I'm 6'5" and I'm pretty, so I stand out. And I normally always wear like, the full Indian,
Okay, nice.
I would wear kurtas and stuff like that as well. So it's like, so I definitely stand out.
People will love you in India.
Yeah. I get lots of photos taken. Yeah, for sure.
In fact, since you spoke about Badrinath, I wanted to share with you the day we had our first call, consecutive 3 days. Every day morning, I had a discussion about Badrinath. Yeah, and in fact, a few of my friends just had pinged me that they have planned for the first week of June. I have some other appointments, so I'm skipping it. But I am also hopeful of visiting. This year. It's been a while. 3 years since I went to Badri, so I'm also looking forward to it. So yeah, it's a magical place.
It is a really magical place. And I always like going up there at the end of the year, like in October, November, because it's normally colder, even though I don't like the cold, but there's like less lines. I don't really
Yeah,
like to wait in lines. Yeah.
I do that too. I go there usually for Diwali. On Diwali, I'm usually there at Badrinath.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just such a special place, Badrinath, and they're really changing it a lot now. It's going through a very big
Yeah, yeah.
upgrade. But I think, I like the fact that they've left the other side that are in the original kind of like town. And then, but now it's like, it's becoming like a real tourist destination now, Badrinath, whereas before it was more of a spiritual pilgrimage kind of place. It still is that. But there's just a lot more people that are going there now, which isn't a bad thing. But, I love going in the hot springs in the morning and like, then going and meditating in the temple and stuff like that as well. And that's just also one of those very magical places where magic happens there.
Very true. Very true. Talk to us a bit more about your journey in Varanasi
Very
and
nice.
what what you would like to share with Western travelers about Varanasi in general.
It's a good question. Varanasi is one of those, I just think that there's a lot of history in Varanasi that has, been around like for a really long time. The arti that's there is very sacred and special. And I like the fact that, you can go along the ghats and you can see it has almost like gone back in time as well. Like, we can see the burning of the bodies and you can, have that whole experience and see how the devotion of a country and how they can, and the people and how it really like means something to go and stay there and if you're in your dying days to do that. I like the fact that there's, so many different places along the ghats that you can go. Every time I've gone there, I've always found like a new place, like and found a place with like a Nandamaima's ashram last time, which I didn't even know was there because I always thought
Yeah.
it was near Rishikesh, but actually no, there's one there as well. So I went to that one. And then the last time as well, I had a guide that was actually taking me around and he wanted to show me this other place. And it's funny because I normally, when I've got a group with me as well, I normally go like, no, can we just like stick to what we're doing? But that day I was like, yeah, okay, like let's go there. And so we went to this other place where there was these guys doing some fighting or something. And then when we came down, there was like these pundits that were like these little kids who were like learning to be pundits, like singing the mantras and stuff. And then we went in there, and as I went in there, this guy looked at me and he was just like pointed, and I was like, oh, why? So I started, and I went under this door and went in, but there was actually another little temple there, but it was where, the book called the Ramayana, which is about Hanuman and stuff like that. So that book was like written there at
Oh wow.
that. Yeah, I forget what the name of the thing is now, but like basically the guys, you could go inside his apartment and you could see like where he wrote it and stuff. But the funny thing is that maybe 2 weeks before I went to that place, I had read the Ramayana, like, you know, and I was like, yeah, if I hadn't have said yes to that guy, we wouldn't have been at that particular gut to actually go into that thing, to go there. I didn't want to go to the thing that he took me to, but that's when I thought, yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, if you surrender and you just listen, you surrender your preferences and you just actually go like, okay, maybe there's a reason why we have to go here, then you get taken on those little journeys. I know that, I normally stay at the Bridge Hotel as well, like the last couple of times because it's been open. I know that it's an expensive place to stay, but I do like the, sometimes I feel like it's good to spend money on certain Like even if you just stay there for 2 nights to actually like be able to go to the RT, be able to walk into town, like be able to do that because you know how in Varanasi you have to walk all that way outside at certain times as well. So yeah, the first couple of times I went there, I always stayed outside, but then when the hotel was open, I actually started staying there. Sometimes if I do go there too, so I stay outside sometimes, depending how long I'm staying there, because you can't stay at the bridge for a long time unless you're a millionaire. And it's yeah, but it's nice to go in there as well, and because it was a palace before, right? So it's kind of like being done in that way where I think it's like a beautiful experience as well. Like it's not just a hotel that you're going in there to sleep in. It's like a hotel that you're going to that almost like recreates what it was before. And you know, yeah, that hotel's like really, really special. And just walking through the alleyways and trying to find things like the blue lassi. Like the first time I ever went there, everyone said I could go to get the blue lassi. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I remember like seeing the sign that was like, go this way, and you walk down that way, then there was another sign going, it's back this way. And you're like, "Where?" You're like, you know,
Everywhere it go, it leads there finally.
literally, walked around in circles for a long time, and I was looking for a different type of shop, not this. I thought it would be like a bit more of a shop, but it ended up being like a door with a cut, like a flappy cut there with the thing. I was like, no wonder I couldn't find it, but I know where it is now. But yeah, every time I go there, I always go to the Blue Lassie, and yeah, things like that. You know, yeah, it's like yeah, there's there's some beautiful
The
things
next
there.
time you're in Varanasi, I would also, since you mentioned Paramahamsa Yogananda, there is also Swami Yukteswar mentions of Rana Mahal. That is also a hotel now, and you could actually stay in the room where Swami Yukteswar had lived and meditated. So, yeah, that's a very energetic experience. Probably one of the spots in Varanasi where you get to see the entire ends of the Ghats from, both sides of the Ghat from a single point. So it's
Yeah,
one beautiful spot in Varanasi as well. Um,
I'll have to get
Lovely.
that off you next time I go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You bring a lot of serious seekers now to India as well, not just travelers. What is the difference you see in someone before they come to India and on their way back home? Or, what are the kind of stories that you have heard from your own travelers and seekers?
I mean, every time I bring people there, it always changes their life. Like I normally find at the beginning, everyone definitely is scared. They're scared that they're going to get like Delhi belly or they're going to get like, it's just from like years of,
Conditioning.
jokes that have happened like throughout time. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think that people are always like, it's very interesting. Like when I go like, here, have a chai off the street, have street chai. It's like the best chai. And they're like, oh no, I'm not touching the street chai. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to get sick. But I'm like, no, it's going to be fine. It's being bored a lot. But, and even just from a spiritual perspective as well, like, a lot of times people don't know my retreats are very, practice and spiritual heavy, I suppose, like where I really take people in because I really love watching the transformation and
Mm,
like I do lots of Yagyas because I really love Yagya. Like, I have Pandit Bhaskar and he's the guy that comes with me. So we're always doing Yagyas everywhere. And like, even in it's like, when we go to Badrinath, we do it in Ganesha's cave and we like, try to do it at the temple. And then like, when we're in Rishikesh, it's always like down by the Ganga or we'll do it near the Ganga at Vasishtha's cave or, places like that as well. And I think that people after the first like few days, they start to settle into it and then they start to surrender into it. And then they really like get into the flow of what's happening. And they'll say the mantras out loud. If you're doing yagya, like, it's all like call and repeat. Like he's always like, calling things out and stuff like that. And I think that people just like really get into it and everyone's like apprehensive at the beginning. In the end, everyone wants to put this thing in the fire. Do you mean? Like, and so it's, understanding there's a blessing. And then I find as well, a lot of times it's not actually while they're still there that they have the aha experience. It's like they kind of finish it, they might do something else, and then they go home. And it's when they go home, that's when they realized something's changed. I think when they're there, they don't really realize it so much, but I
mm,
think that's definitely the experience that I have from people is that when they get home, go back to their like normal life, then they go,
yeah, yeah,
I feel different. Like I'm
yes,
not the same person anymore. And so I
yeah,
think that's what it is like, when they're there,
yeah,
everything's all just different
yeah,
because it's like for the senses, like every sense is alive, taste,
yeah.
people touching you, like so many people. And, so you're already a bit like, and then you get home and you go back to your like normal life. And then you realize like, I'm not normal anymore. Now I have to get a new normal, I think
In
that's what it
fact,
is. their feedback for sure.
In fact, I have heard travelers say that, people look at me differently after my India trip. People are more with me now. It has never happened to me before. I've heard few travelers say that, and I resonate with what you're saying now.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely is. That's probably what I get the most emails or the most things about. It's funny because I even sometimes people are still releasing stress, how like they keep stress in the body. I had a lady who came to India with me maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. When we were there, like she came, she was definitely struggling a little bit at the beginning with like, feeling like, oh, these poor people. I was like, they're fine. Like, don't place your stuff on them. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then so she went through and she was always doing everything. Like she did all the Yagyas, she did all the meditate, did everything. And then she went home and after maybe like a week or something, she ended up, because she had all the curates and then bought everything. And she said, she ended up having a big bonfire and she like burnt everything because she was like, I don't want to go back there again. I'm not doing anything. And so she just kind of like destroyed everything. And then everything that she bought there, she just burnt it. And then about a week after she burnt it, the stress had released.
Wow.
And then she's been back with me 4 times since then.
Wow.
Every single since then, she's come back every time. And now she's brought her daughter and her husband.
Wow. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes. She's like fully down the rabbit hole now. Do you know what I mean? But I think that's like, you can look at that. That's what I mean. She came back and it was shifting something in her so much that, when you try to hold on to something, hold
Yeah.
on to an version of you that it's too late. It's already
Yeah.
shifting. So that's why she was being that. So it was easy to just go, I'm going to burn all my clothes and burn the things. Like I don't want it anymore, And then it wasn't until a week later when everything had kind of lifted and shifted. And then she was like, I remember she rang me and she was like, where are you going next time? I'm coming with you again. And then I told her, and that time she brought her daughter as well. And so now her and her daughter have actually come like 4 times and her husband came on the last trip.
I think from an India context, it is very important for you to have someone who can walk with you. In fact, hold your hands and walk with you, I would say, because India needs that curation. Else, it's not a destination where you just go explore or you just walk around seeing things, right. You have to imbibe India culturally, spiritually. The essence of India changes you fundamentally in a lot of ways. And yes, some people take time to understand what this essence of India is. That also leads to my next question. A lot of Westerners are hesitant about India, about the chaos, the safety concerns, especially for women traveling. What do you tell these people when they say, I'm not sure if I'm ready for India?
Yeah, I mean, I do get that a lot too, but I think that it's normally misconceptions, because I feel like India's changed like a lot in the last like 10 years as well. And so I normally say like it's, you just have to go there and have the experience for yourself. But I said it's not like, it's definitely safe for women. Like I don't feel like that it's not safe for women and things like that as well. But a lot of times that's why you go with a group and with a guide or someone who's actually been there before. We're not going to take you somewhere that's like, dangerous for you and stuff like that as well. Or for people who book, things through your company and things like that too. Do you know what I mean? Like it's about, it's not really like a place that you go by yourself. I don't even really like going by myself, like, sometimes I like going around by myself, but a lot of times I will also like, I've got a few friends there who are guides now because I've been using them like different times. Do you mean? Like if I'm going to travel, I'll travel with them. And plus a lot of times they can, you know, get me into places easier or show me places that I wouldn't have actually known about if I didn't go with them, like a Shiva temple that's like, around the corner or like, all that kind of stuff. Like I wouldn't have known. So things like that. So I feel like it is definitely a place that you shouldn't, it's more fun if you actually have someone that you're with
Very
anyway.
true. Very true.
And yeah, and I think that if you've got like a local person, if you're lucky enough to be able to, use a great guide or do whatever as well, then I think that's definitely a big bonus for sure. And
Having said
it's a
that,
very safe place.
the next time you come to India, I would love to show you Kanyakumari, especially when you come south. I live in Kanyakumari, the southernmost point. So
Wow.
I'd love to take you around and your guests, whenever you come plan south of India.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'm going to come back next January. That's the plan at the moment, depending on
Super.
what's happening in the world. But like, yeah, my plan's to come back down south next January.
I hope we stay in the safe area. So thankfully, Australia to India, especially Tamil Nadu travel, shouldn't be a problem.
No, it should be fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, for someone who is, uh, yeah. So for someone who is curious about Jyotish, but doesn't know where to start. What is the one thing they should understand about Vedic astrology and where should they start?
I think that with Vedic astrology, it's really good to understand that, your date of birth, place of birth, time of birth is like the seed event of your life, right? So that's like when the seed was planted. And if you can get that information, then you can see where the planets were when you were born and in which houses, so what star signs, and then they can be exalted, which means they've got more energy. They can be debilitated, which means they've got less energy, or they can be in their own house, which means that they're kind of happy. But if we're connected to the planets by the chakra system of the body, so like Saturn is the root, Jupiter is the second, Mars is the third, Venus is the heart, Mercury is the throat, then Sun and Moon, and then we've also got Rahu and Ketu, which are the Ida and Pingala of the body. And I think that if you realize that, energetically we're connected to the planets by that energy system of the body, then it's about understanding, like, if you can have an understanding like, oh, my Venus is a bit debilitated, and every planet has like a high value and a low value. So maybe you're choosing a lower value thing of like, Venus, instead of choosing love, you might be choosing, obsession, that kind of thing as well. So it's like that kind of thing. And so, I think as well, I always like to think of it in terms of like a Barbie doll sometimes. Like, sometimes people want to be like Beach Barbie with a beach umbrella and a towel. And then other times there's like another Barbie that has like, could be the kitchen Barbie that has a kitchen
Yeah.
thing, right? So, you stop comparing yourself like to, or trying to be something different. You understand like, oh, this is the energy that I have. It's almost like what you're encoded to do as well, right? So it's almost like, I feel like it's an encoding of like, tells you what your journey through time is going to be about. And if you learn how to, if you understand like what the energy is that you're dealing with, like where your planets are weak, where they're strong, like what time period you're in. I think, Jyotish, especially compared to Western astrology, when you have the dasha system, which shows, the certain periods of time that you're in, when you understand that period of time and what house is lit up, and that's what you're working on for the next however long it is, depending on what the dasha is, then you can live your life in a whole different way where you really understand, then you're looking at it through a lens of going like, oh, the reason why I'm feeling like this or doing like this is because this is what's going on right now. But then you can ask yourself, like, instead of thinking that something's happening to you, you understand it's happening for you. And then you can say, like, what am I supposed to be learning about myself, like through this interaction or this experience or this stuff? And then you can, and then if you also understand what the high value and the low value is of that particular situation, if you're feeling like the low value, then you start reaching for what the highest version of that is, so that you can, we always want to choose the highest version, because that's where the evolution is, because we're only here for one purpose, that's evolution. So if you can actually help, understand your journey through time with the energy that you're playing with that way, and sometimes things slow down or something happens, Saturn might be transiting your chart right now and slowing you down, but he's not slowing you down because he's trying to annoy you. He's slowing you down because he wants to like course correct you so that you can go dit, dit, dit. If you go 1 degree in a different direction, you get a whole new destination, right? So it's about understanding like your life like through that lens, and then you realize that you're encoded to do something, and that when different things happen and different situation stuff, it's all for your own evolution and for learning about yourself and how to move through time. That's what I love about it.
That's very beautifully put. Thank you so much for sharing that. In fact, I'm a Tulan Rasi and I hurt my back and I've been on a bed rest for the last 2 weeks.
Oh,
And I know
really?
exactly why the Saturn transit is helping there.
Yeah, sometimes it's getting you to slow down a little bit, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, it did. It
Yeah,
did. It pinned
yeah,
me to a place. I've been on road since November, just traveling. And, even now when I came back home, I really wanted to travel again. And then this happened. And I was like, okay, thank you. I understand.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Actually, it's funny, the last 2 days for me as well, I've been working a lot in the last, like, few weeks, and the last 2 days, I haven't been feeling like 100%, so I've just been resting a lot more and going to bed earlier and doing that kind of stuff as well. But my friend, actually, she was the one who texted me today, and she said, "I think it's actually you need to just slow down a little bit." So sometimes, like, maybe you feel a bit unwell because sometimes we just need to slow down. We don't need to be on we can get too caught up in it. So, and I think in those situations too, it is about being gentle with ourselves to understand, like, we don't have to, if we need to take a little break, even for a day or 2 days or whatever it is, then we need to do that too. Yeah.
I think but the way you put about Vedic astrology and how you imbibe it in your life, or how you make it part of your life, right? Like most of the time you're too hard on yourself, and these tools also help you to understand yourself better, right? Like what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that it is all about understanding yourself like through a whole new. I think most people go through their life always comparing themselves to someone else. Like, oh, my friend's like this, I should be more like that, or like this person's like this, I should be more like that. When you realize like what the energies are for you, then you stop comparing yourself like to other people. And I think that's the biggest thing. I know when I do a reading, I'll go like, oh, you're probably like this, and this is what's happening in this particular area, and this whatever. Or you might have had this relationship with your parents or this relationship with your siblings and done things like that. And they go like, oh, wow, like, how did you know all that stuff? And even things like I had a lady the other day where I saw like K2, for example, in the second house, which normally means that at some point in your life, like, or some point at the beginning of your life, you were usually separated from your birth family. But, I'd said to her, because it was the first thing I saw, I said, oh, were you separated from your family when you were born? And she said, is that in there? Like, yeah. And she said, oh, when I was born, my mother was only 16 and my father was only 17. So I got taken off them when I was born, raised by the nuns in the convent. Like, so, and after 1 year, when my mother was like 17 and she proved that she could look after me, then I got given back to my parents. She was actually someone now who's like 60, and she is a big coach. Like she's always coaching like big teams of people. And the next day she called me in the morning going like, can I call you? She texted me and I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I've been awake all night, because whenever I tell my story in my coaching sessions, I always say to people, because I said to her, oh, you came in burning off lots of karma. That was like you burning off karma really quickly, getting taken away from them so that you could have a really good back end of your life. Like after 35, like your life's been like really good. And she was like, she was like, yeah, that's true. Actually, it has been really good. And she said, and when I told her that stuff, she said, when I used to go to do talks in front of all these people, I used to always talk about my life in a victim, saying like, I was born to a 16-year-old mother and I, got taken away, blah, 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 like poor me. But then I turned my life around and I did this, But she said, now I realize I came in burning off karma. That was actually a good thing that happened to me then, because it made me have a good back end and made me understand myself more. And then I started looking at all the areas of my life, like when I got divorced, like when I had, another relationship breakup, I've always thought about that in a negative way. Like what were the positive things that came out of that? So it kind of changed her whole perspective on like so much stuff. And she's like gone on to do like lots of, new things. And I think that's what it is. Like, that's why I really love it. I love the way it helps people have a new perspective on their life, and they realize that like, oh, that's actually what I'm playing
That's my
with.
journey.
Stop comparing myself or judging myself based on other people, on what other people are doing. This is my journey and my role, and it's however it flows. Like, and if people want to come along for the ride, great. And if they fall away, then they fall away. It's like things like that, I think that's what I love about it the most, more than anything.
Beautiful. I mean, it's lovely to hear your journey and the way you're sharing light with the rest of the world. And I wish you a lot more. But I have a few more questions before I let you go.
That's no problem.
You plan to take people again to Navagraha temples in January 2027. Um, why Navagraha temple specifically? Because I know that an astrology workshop or teaching people astrology doesn't require a temple. Why Navagraha temples, and what you have experienced at Navagraha temple? Let's start from there.
When I do the astrology retreats, I normally give every person like a 10-page like report on their chart, right? So that they understand like what Venus is doing in their chart, what the sun is doing in their chart, what like things. So, and we do Yagyas as well at the, last year, for example, this year we did it at like Saturn temple, Sun temple, and Saturn, Sun, and Jupiter. We did a Yagya inside each temple. And a lot of times as well, it's about when we go there, I like people to think about, say, like, if Jupiter's debilitated in your chart, we would go like, oh, you would know because I've given you the report. When you go to Jupiter, like, this is the mantra that you can say. Yeah, I've got like a japa mantra that they can say. We go there, obviously they take the blessing, they look at, then we do Abhishekam at most of them as well, at least all of them, pretty much we do that. And so, and I think that the ones that go there, I don't know why. I feel like it's one of those things that it helps you to go deeper into it. And, I wasn't sure. I mean, when I did it this year was the first time I'd done it. It was an idea that I had that took me 2 years to to be able to manifest it in the way where I thought it would work for people. I was also not sure, taking people to all, especially Westerners who aren't used to that kind of stuff, like going to 9 different planet temples and doing Yagyas and doing that stuff as well was going to go. But it was really interesting, like how it really shifted people. Because I feel like the reason why I wanted to go there was I thought, if you can go there, imagine going there in January and then aligning to each planet, which means aligning to each chakra. And then, you should be like pulling the arrow back. So that way you come back, you should be able to go. That was my intention, So it was just about that. And I really liked the fact that each planet temple as well, the Navagraha temples are all like the planets. Even the pundits are like the planets. Like if you look at the Mercury ones, they're all a bit weedy, fiery. Ones are a bit more fatter with like the
The
gold.
energies are different in each of
they're so different. The pundits that work there are different, you look at even the pundits look like the planet in a way,
Wow,
it's very
wow. That's a very interesting thing that you have observed. I totally resonate with what you're
I
saying.
really felt that. Yeah, I was just thinking like, wow, this is kind of weird. And I think the thing is, and the interesting thing was as well is that, this is again the way that nature takes over when you're there. Like we had to, and something happened one day when we were supposed to do maybe Yagya at the Saturn temple, and they were like, oh, we need to swap it around, and so we need to swap it to a different day. So I was like, yeah, it's fine. Whenever I'm there, even if I've got a group, I'm like, whatever's happening is happening for the highest good of whatever it is. So if we need to change something, just change it. So we had to change it, but it ended up being that we had to swap Moon and Saturn around. But it ended up being that when we went to the Moon temple, it was the full moon. And when we went to the Saturn temple that day, the next day, it was actually when Saturn was changing nakshatras. So, and it was like, if I tried to time that, I couldn't have done it. But, nature just took over and just went and was like, no, swapping this around, and it's just the magical things like that happen there. That's why I can't stop going and stop taking people, And I think even though sometimes the people that I take don't even understand the relevance or the thing of that, I feel like it's a way of India giving me something that's actually keeping me going to actually like to give people experiences. And I think I'll continue to do it because I really like it. I mean, I know there's the elemental temples there as well, like, the earth, fire, air, space, water temples. And, but I don't know. I just wanted to do, I always feel like if you can start your year off by being fully aligned, and because how I spoke about at the beginning, I used to always go and do my meditation retreat in Rishikesh. I used to feel that always aligned me for my year ahead, especially when I was in the corporate world. And I feel like, imagine how beautiful it is to, align and do that at the beginning of the year to tune into everything. So that way you can really set your intention for the year. Like, it's better than your New Year's resolution. You're actually doing New Year's resolution plus you're actually going in and align to the energy of the planet. So,
It's a beautiful analogy that you mentioned because January is a perfect time. It's also the time. Yeah, I mean, as a kid born in Kanyakumari, lived in Kanyakumari, I've always wondered how the sun starts moving from the. I mean, technically in the map, if you see, it's from the right to the left for me. When I look at the east side, it's basically sun moving from the south towards the north. That shift happens in January, and in Kanyakumari, we have a map. We have a position of the sunrise, how it shifts between January to the 6 months journey. And it's January when it stops in a certain direction and then it starts moving upwards. So it's a perfect time for the transition, and it's great. I mean, it has naturally aligned with your cause, all these things that you're mentioning. So it's beautiful, and that's the way it's supposed to be. You're naturally being guided into this whole thing, and that's very reflective in the whole conversation that you have shared so far. Clearly, you've been guided by the masters, in your journey. I think that's what gives you the light to share with others as well.
yeah, definitely. I think that if I was someone in my life was brought up a Catholic and, went to lots of different, was a strict Catholic, like, had to do lots of church and stuff. But I was always like a seeker, like I was always like seeking something to Yeah, and then when I lived in Hong Kong for a while, and I studied like Buddhism, and then I lived in Malaysia and I read the Quran, and then I lived in London and I did Scientology, and then I came back to Australia, and then I learnt meditation, and then I discovered like Vedic knowledge, where, the Vedas. And so it was almost about understanding that there was Jesus and Muhammad and Buddha, and that they were all in different stages of consciousness. And, you can have Christ consciousness and Buddha consciousness. And like, that was a thing then that like rang so true that I ended up going, okay, this is like kind of what I've been looking for, and then went down that rabbit hole. But, I probably spent like about 7 years, whatever, where I was just going there by myself, and like just going on retreats and studying and learning and stuff because I was interested in it. I didn't think at the time that I would quit my career and do this. This wasn't part of the plan, but like I said, after the Vashistas cave thing that day, something started someone planted a seed in my head that day that was like, maybe you need to, do this. And I felt like, oh, is this something that I could do? And then I feel like, it's been like maybe 11 years now that I've been, becoming a teacher and like, starting to run retreats and doing stuff. And it's just been this beautiful evolution as well. Whereas I feel like now it's probably taken like a good 10 years, like where I feel like now it's going like, okay, I know what I offer now. I know who I am. I'm not really seeking anything else. Like I don't need to learn something else. I mean, I'll always be learning, but I don't need like Jyotish, breathwork, Kriya, and meditation. Like perfect. They all feed in together perfectly. And I think that, and they can all evolve,
That can
and then,
expand your awareness.
yeah, and then they can
Different
always
ways.
expand your awareness. But I feel now like, I think that my plan is as well that I would like to have like 3 retreats that I do that I might alternate, where I do Badrinath one year, the next year I might do Varanasi, the next year I might do Navagraha kind of thing, and just like that way I don't get bored, people don't get bored. I have like other, if you want to come with me on more than one retreat, then you've got 3. You can come with me 3 times.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely. If someone is feeling that quite inner pull towards India, that thing that they can't explain, what would you say to them?
Go. Just get on a plane and go. I think like just try to find, someone or something that you align with. Like, it's good to go on a meditation retreat. Go and, like go to Rishikesh and you can just hang out there as well, like if you want to go somewhere. Although Rishikesh now is kind of like a bit more touristy than it used to be. But I think that, but it's a good starting place to start somewhere, especially if you want to go somewhere like, like Delhi and those things, like a proper city, like, but I think that if you go to Varanasi or you go to Rishikesh or those kind of places like that, then at least, go and stay there for a while and immerse yourself in it and go to Aarti and go and, get into the culture and try to understand it. Yeah, at least in Rishikesh, you can go to Paramath Nikatan and stuff like that, and you can go to, listen to some lectures there. You can go and do the Aarti at night. You can, you can get involved in it, as involved or not as involved as you want, And so I think that that's like, you have to start somewhere. And I know that from anyone that's ever been, like, you'll never regret it, because I have never had one person that comes back that doesn't say, I want to go back again. When can I go back again? People want to go back. As soon as they get back, they're like, I'm already thinking about when I can go back again. So that's the magic of India, I think,
Super.
There's a
Thank you so
pull.
much.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you so much for having me as well. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, really lovely to have you, patiently share with us your journey, and such a beautiful journey. Like I had a lot of goosebumps moment of the experiences that you have had in India, and I really wish you the best because you're doing a very important part of sharing the light with the rest of the world. And I wish you the best and wishing you more retreats and more experiences for yourself and the people who you bring to India. Yeah, stay
Thank you.
blessed.
Next time I come and see you and you can show me your part.
Oh yes, I would love to. I would love to.
Yeah,
Like my home and the places around. You would love it. You will definitely love it. But having said that, I specifically wanted to recommend to you Tiruvannamalai, Arunachala the next time you come.
I have been to Manalay, and I did actually do the 14-kilometer
You did the
walk with,
Girivan. Very
I
nice.
did that
Yeah.
last time. Yeah,
Ah,
I did that.
okay. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah, I
Keep
did
that
that.
keep that part of your journey wherever possible because a lot of people, the biggest problem is the inner fire. And in Tiruvannamalai, there is no escape from it. You know,
Yeah.
the moment you land there, the land itself is such that it will burn within you, bright and shining. So it's one of the most sacred spaces in south of India.
No, that's great. And I'll definitely come and find you next time as well.
Yeah, for sure. Would love to help you in any way possible when you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Take care.
I'll see. All
Namaste.
right. Bye.
Bye.
Namaste.